Hello, welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I am Matthew Lucas.
And I am Stephen Ryan.
And we do post every week on a Friday, so do hit subscribe and the notification bell if you want to hear what our continuing horticultural adventures might be week to week.
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Are we in your vegetable garden?
Yes, we are.
I thought you made a solemn vow that this channel was not going to be about vegetables.
It was the plan because other people do it so well and I didn't see any need for us to carry on with it as well. But I wanted to show a technique that I use in my vegetable garden that I described to people on radio at one point, and I thought, well, maybe they need to see it visually. It would make a lot more sense if they did. So that's in fact what we're doing here today.
So this is the Stephen Ryan patent method for growing broad beans, is it not?
It is indeed. I have to say too, though, when we decided we were going to do this, we had... Why does everything go wrong when you decide to film it?
It's nature, it's garden.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Because I had bush rats who came in and ate all my broad bean seeds twice. Then I raised them all in pots to plant out, which I have done, but they're nowhere near as tall this year as they would have been otherwise if I'd got them done early enough. So it's been quite a saga getting to the point to actually do this filming.
All right, well, we're going to spin the camera around, look at your broad bean patch and just talk about why you needed to do what you're doing, which we will reveal when we turn around.
Yeah, exactly, what a good idea.
All right, Stephen, so here is your broad bean patch. So what was the problem that you had that led you to the Stephen Ryan patent method for growing broad beans?
Well, broad beans are ungainly things and they have a tendency to flop all over the place. They in fact will snap in the wind and heavy rain as well.
Yeah.
And so you need some way of holding them up, and individually staking them with bamboo canes seemed to me like a waste of time.
Yes.
So I decided...
Labour intensive.
Yeah, labour intensive and not overly effective, I don't think.
Yeah.
I came up with my patented method, which is basically one section of weld mesh, the sort of metal that they use in reinforcing for concrete, or you can use it for fencing and so forth. So it's recyclable.
Yes.
I use it every year.
Yeah.
And in summer I'll sometimes, when the broad beans are over, stand it on edge and grow peas or summer beans up the same piece of weld mesh. So reused. Some metal stakes, which again, of course, can be reused every year. So I need half a dozen of those. I put those in at the beginning. And as you'll see from the footage, I use the weld mesh as a grid to sow the seeds.
Well, at that point, I think let's go no further, but let's wind back in time to midwinter when you were planting the seeds, and we'll have a look at what that process looks like. Let's go.
Good idea.
Stephen, I'm feeling a little gardening Australia.
Yes, it's a little bit weird, but anyhow, there you go.
Here we are in the veggie garden.
Yes, doing our thing with veggies.
Promising that you never would.
Yep.
All right, so bed preparation. This is looking very, very brown
delicious
and healthy. I want to dive into it.
Yeah, well, don't, because I've just raked it.
So tell us about the preparation.
All right. Well, the ground has been dug over, some manure and some compost have been dug in. So then it's raked out level so that it's ready as a seed bed. So this is now ready.
Okay. How often do you dig in fertilizer and manure?
Depends on the crop I'm putting in. If I'm putting in a leaf crop, I will put manure particularly in before the leaf crop.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a root crop, I don't, because you don't want a lot of leafy stuff at the expense of roots.
Right.
So I've only put a small amount of manure in here because bean crops do tend to create some of their own nitrogen, so they don't need a lot, but it was there and I used it. So it probably wouldn't have mattered. But as long as the soil is in good tilth and ready to sow, then we're ready to plant our broad beans.
Good tilth.
Yes.
All right, well, we have our bed. What's our next step?
The next step is to put the frame down. And the reason I'm doing this, I've been doing this for some years, and I happened to mention it on radio one morning, and I had so much feedback from people wanting to know what I'd actually done. Now, I can't take... Well, I thought of it myself, but I do believe other people would have probably thought of this at the same time.
Like the wheel?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. It probably wasn't just me. But I was having problems keeping my broad bean standing up.
Yep.
I was also having problems with cats and things digging around in the garden bed when I'd just sown the nice fresh seed. And so I came up with this idea, which is all about a piece of reinforcing mesh or weld mesh. Whichever school you go to, I don't know. And so let's go and put it down and I'll explain how it all works.
Explain to me what's going to happen. Yes. All right, let's have a go.
All right.
Well, Stephen, I'm helping you in the garden.
Yes, here we go. Now, this is a nice big piece of well mesh, as you can see here. I think it's about what you'd call in the old measurements 4-inch square, but it's not that important. It needs to be at least that size, but bigger is fine too, and you'll work out why once we start to sow the seeds.
All right, so we're just going to plonk it onto that bed.
Yep, exactly. So we just place it over the bed.
Excellent.
So we stick towards the front of the bed because the back of the bed is in more shade, so all the beans will be at this end of the bed.
Okay.
So we do this, then we put in some metal stakes, which I've got over there as well.
Okay.
It will all become terribly clear to you in due course. So what we do is we stick one in the corner there.
No, I would help you, Stephen, but I feel that this is your baby.
This is a really
very technical
thing to do. So stick one in there, one in there, and because this weld mesh is not overly rigid, I'll put one in round about the middle as well. So
and one on this side.
And one on, as you can see, that's all very technical. I can hammer those in later with an axe or something, and now we're ready to sow.
I just want to interrupt play, as they say in cricket terms, to look at the amaranth. So it is winter. And look,
it's still looking fantastic.
It is still looking glorious and beautiful.
But we haven't had a proper frost yet, so once we get one decent frost, the amaranth will collapse. So
and will you cut it down then? What do you do?
I just pull it out, throw it in the compost heap, and then wait till next season until the next batch comes up. Easy as.
Back to the beans.
Yeah, let's go back to the beans. Now, so all you do is you take your seed and you poke them down and you count out 1, 2, 3, poke the next one down, 1, 2, 3, poke the next one down, 1, 2, 3, and poke the next one down. Then I alternate. You miss a row, then you start and alternate them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and miss a row again, and start from the beginning again. So count out 3, and you just keep doing this until, of course, you've gone the whole hog. So you miss a row, and every third hole in your wire, you poke down a seed. Simple as that.
Well, I've enjoyed helping you in the veggie garden, Stephen.
Yes, and your help was greatly appreciated. Thank you, Matthew.
So what's the germination time?
Well, normally broad beans will start to germinate in around about 7 to 10 days.
Quick.
So there should be a little bit of a shoot start to stick up at about that time.
Did you not have a little problem before?
Yes, this may be a never-ending story in a sense. I've already sown the crop once this year, and what I assume was possibly a native bush rat came in and dug out every single seed and ate them all.
It's hors d'oeuvre time!
Yes, he obviously has a great appreciation of broad beans, and so now I've got to try and work out how I can keep him out until the broad beans get properly germinated and hopefully move on with a crop this year.
Well, we will check back into this space when they have burst forth and we can look at the plants in their maturity.
Let's hope so.
All right. See you in spring. But then the rats ate them.
Yes, twice. Some very bright person, I think it was Einstein, once said doing the same thing repeatedly expecting a different outcome was stupidity or idiocy or whatever. And they were
He's
right.
never grown broad beans though.
No. So anyhow, so in the end I had to raise them in pots, which I've never had to do before. And apparently the bush rats only wanted the seeds. They didn't want the broad bean plants. So once the seed had been expended, they were fine. So I planted them out and here they are.
And we can go and look at the planting out footage when they were germinated and a little bigger. Let's have a look now. Stephen Ryan, are we not back in the veggie garden?
Yes, much to my disappointment, but there you go, we're back in the veggie garden.
All right, so we're continuing with our broad bean saga. Can I just make a quick observation?
Yes.
We are not where we started.
No, we're not. I am sure.
Tell us all, Stephen.
Yeah, well,
Tell
I'm
us
sure
all.
our viewers will be pleased to know that I have failures.
Oh.
Yeah, and it has happened this year. I have been growing broad beans for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years.
The dawn of time.
Yes, well, not quite the dawn of time, but I've been growing them for ages and ages with nary a problem. And so we sowed them on the other side of the vegetable garden and put them all the seeds in, and I used
Your cunning contraption.
Yeah, my cunning contraption. And all would have been well, except that there was a bush rat, or it might have even been a normal rattus rat, that came in and dug up every single seed and ate them. and that happened twice. But I was determined to try again. So what I did this time, I changed the bed so that it would confuse them, hopefully.
Rats are so easily confused.
Oh, they are. They don't know what they're doing. And I also raised the seedlings this time individually in plastic tubes. So I started the plants off in my greenhouse up at work.
Yep.
So they're running a bit late this year because they didn't go in early enough because it was meant to be the earlier crops.
Yeah.
So I've swapped the bed, put down my grid, planted the growing seedlings into the grid, and although I'm going to get a slightly late crop, I think, of broad beans this year, the rats haven't touched them. I'm assuming they wanted the seed and not the plant.
So this was my question then. Is that a common occurrence that animals will dig up freshly planted seeds? I mean, I guess the bean seeds are quite large, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not probably likely to find your carrot seed or something like that. But yes, large seeds like beans or corn, those sorts of things, you will find sometimes that birds or nasty little rats will come in and dig them up and eat them. So this is the first time I've had that issue. But it happened, and I'm still determined to have a crop of broad beans. So we've now got to stage 2 in our broad bean saga. So there you go.
And the plants are looking very healthy, and I would say they are, what,
That
7
big, yes.
centimetres?
Yes, they're
Which is
around about that
what,
big.
4 inches?
Or ish, yes.
Ish.
And we're now starting to get a little bit of sun and a little bit of warmth in it. So they will start to move, and hopefully by mid to late spring I will have a crop of broad beans that I'll be able to show our viewers.
And also the cunning contraption, that's the whole point of this
Well,
story.
exactly. So once we get to the point where these beans start to get a little bit of height, we'll show people how I use it.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to a month, 2 months?
Month to 6 weeks, we should be ready to rip.
See you in a month-ish. All right, so now we are well into spring.
Yep.
These plants are about 1 metre tall, so about 2.5 feet.
Yes, and should be a little taller if I'd got them in earlier.
It's
but
the rat's fault.
Yeah,
it's
well,
not
it is the rat's
a culture of
fault.
blame, but it is the rat's fault.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so now the job is to lift the whole frame and tie it to the stakes that I've got here so that it works as a support for the whole lot.
There you go. So we are going to do that now, viewers, so
Yes.
you can see the finale of the
Yes.
Stephen Ryan patent method for broad bean growing.
Yes, good idea.
All right, let's go.
All right. All I need now is something to tie the framework up to the stakes, and I'm just going to use some of these cable ties because they're quick, simple, and they do the job very effectively. You might have some sort of string or twine that will do the job as well, but it's a bit more fiddly getting it through the holes in the stakes I've got. So the cable ties are fantastic.
Okay, Stephen, I'm wearing Yves Saint Laurent, so I'm really dressed.
You should well and truly dress for this job. Here are some cable ties for you because you're going to be on one side and I'm going to be on the other.
Okay.
And we're going to gently try and lift this weld mesh up without breaking too many broad beans because it should have been done a week or so ago, but of course I had to wait until Matthew arrived. So it's all his fault if things don't go well.
Not a culture of blame.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And we're going to see if we can lift this up so that it's just below the tops of most of the broad beans.
Yeah.
And then we will pop this through the wire and through the stake and hold everything in place. That's
Okay,
the plan.
viewers, let's go.
All right.
All right, Stephen, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So just gently sort of lift and separate as we go. As I said, this should have been done a little bit earlier because the broad beans have actually got rather too large.
Hang on.
All right, so we're getting up. All right, I've got one front up about where I need it. So I'm going to go through the hole in the stake, around the wire.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, lift that up to there. There we go. All right, so they're all looking a little bit wobbly at the moment because they were done a little bit on the late side. But if I just sort of flick them back, make sure that they're sort of above the hole they've come through, and with any luck at all, they'll all grow back into the right positions, and then I'll be able to go in and harvest the beans either from above or also from below, so it will work quite well.
That was fun, Stephen. I was worried about pulling them out, I have to say.
Yeah, well, we did manage to pull 1 or 2 out because this was rather done later than it should have been, but that's a matter of what happens when you've got a schedule for filming.
So, ta-da, I must say, that was relatively easy, and it immediately I can see the practicality of it.
Yep, and the beans will right themselves. They'll also stand up to the winds and things far better now, so, you know, it will work.
Yeah.
And hopefully in a few weeks' time, I'll be picking lots and lots of broad beans.
You need to be a broad bean fan. Quick question though, the flowers are beautiful. Is there a decorative version of the broad bean, that's used for its flowers?
Well, there is another variety of it out there that's sold that has sort of cherry red and black flowers, marketed as a heritage form. I've grown it and don't find it as good at producing beans, and I figure if I'm going to have broad beans, I might as well have the beans.
Not just the flower.
Yeah, and I like the black and white of the classical form anyway as a flower.
It is very pretty. But while we were filming this over the we've done 3 different sets of filming in your veggie garden. I noticed something first growing in your compost heap, and I've just noticed it there as well.
Yeah.
So we made a little segue about an edible green.
Yes, and it's one of those that you don't have to put any effort into because it just self-seeds itself everywhere.
Let's have a look.
Well, Matthew, this is in my compost heap, but it is commonly known as miner's lettuce, Claytonia perfoliata, and it grows all the way from Canada down into Mexico. And it's a winter growing annual, so it starts to collapse as the warmer weather comes on in the spring. Self-sows itself all over the place, including my compost heap. And yes, it is edible because you can pick the whole stem and eat it, in fact. So I use it in salads. I think you can cook it as well, but I've not tried. It has very little flavour, but it has very nice texture. It's sort of crunchy and yet succulent. So there you go, another interesting edible.
So there you go. Every opportunity for edibility.
Yes, and I'm going to get out of the vegetable garden before I become Farmer Ryan and go back to the ornamental garden, but there you go.
Well, that was fun, and I hope our viewers enjoyed actually seeing that, because I think the feedback from radio was that it's kind of, you can describe something, but you kind of need to see it in action.
Yeah, so hopefully all those people that listen to me on Melbourne radio on a regular basis will be watching this so that they'll actually understand what I was talking about.
There you go. If you want to know what we're doing next week, which will not be in the veggie garden,
absolutely not,
do hit subscribe. We post every Friday. We also do a 60-second short once a week. So if you've got a question for Steve and Ryan, do put it in the comments below, and we'll see if Stephen can answer it in 60 seconds.
And if I can't answer it, we won't put it to air. So there you go. It works in both directions.
How simple is that? So we look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, take care.
Bye all.